The US Treasury just executed a $10 billion debt buyback, which would be the largest in history. And when you see a tweet like that, you may fall for the narrative right away when you say, for example, liquidity injections at this scale signal one thing: legacy systems are failing, right? So you see something like that and many other tweets that just add up to the heat that the United States is getting right now for the bond market. Is it stable enough? Are we on the verge of a collapse? So this is exactly what I'm going to be talking about today. So for that, you really need to understand monetary mechanics, which is exactly why we're here, right? So if you see here, I need to always refer to that image because that shows the yin and yang relationship between the dollar and US debt. So US treasuries are cash-like assets that are used by banks all over the world to generate credit. That's what we call repo, a repurchasing agreement. That is what is that so important? Because that's the engine that generates liquidity, thus driving all markets and all risk assets, especially Bitcoin, right? That's where we're most interested in. But you cannot understand Bitcoin without understanding repo. And why do we have those buybacks? So are we on the verge of a specific collapse, or what's happening to the US debt? For that, you need to understand the mechanics, right? So the Treasury has a specific goal of getting rid of a certain type of bond out of the market that is not liquid enough. And for that, we need to understand the yield curve. So let me get that for you. So here, as you can see, this blue line is the US yield curve. So if you see here, you see all of the maturities from the short term here, 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, until the 30-year 30-year yield, right? If you see here, so it's a little bit warped down on the short end of the curve, and this is exactly the most important part for what comes to pristine collateral. What do banks want the most to use as a collateral? Because not every bond is the same. So the long end of the curve is not that sought that looked for, but the short term is really what is really needed, right? So this is actually the issuance from the Treasury also focuses on the short term, especially T-bills. So T-bills are the very best of pristine collateral worldwide. However, there's also two kinds of bonds, and this is the most important part for today. So you maybe that's the first time you see the concept between off-the-run treasuries and on-the-run treasuries. Basically, the difference is the older the issuance of a specific bond, even if they have the same maturity, even if we're talking about a 10-year yield, for example, but one of them has been issued 2-3 years ago, and another one is just fresh out of the oven, so to speak. That's the fresher one is exactly what the market needs, because when we call the off the run, so that means that the older securities that have been issued, they yield high yields, but they're not very liquid. So meaning that they're not easily traded. And that's the problem. You need to have the most liquid asset as you can possibly get with a zero credit risk, which is exactly an on the run T-bill. So that's the very best. So the idea behind the buyback is to replace the off-the-run treasuries with on-the-run treasuries to make sure that that liquidity is actually fixed. Of course, $10 billion is not that big of a deal. It's, I mean, it's the largest ever, but it's still a very small amount compared to the rest. But it's very important to understand that that mechanic is actually one of the ways to get around the whole limitations that we have, not only on the banking system, because banks have almost no more room into their balance sheets to trade, so they need to make sure that they're as efficient as possible, and that's mostly due to a lot of regulation that that banks have had since 2008, but also based on the fact that the Treasury is in a lot of trouble right now with the whole debt ceiling. So they need to be very careful in what kind of bonds they're able to issue. And the only way for you to issue new debt is to get rid of the old debt because of the debt ceiling negotiation that we have as we speak. And of course, this is all very complicated for us to present in a single video. So this is why we present everything on our BI report. So our Bitcoin intelligence report. Actually, I can show you here a little bit of what we do. So this is our sorry about that. Just 1 second. Boom. All right. So this is basically our very comprehensive report with many charts that we do every single week, getting all the details about what's happening to the market, about the whole macro situation. And my specific part here is the monetary mechanics, where we go into M2, some of the things that drive liquidity, all of the markets, spending. So it's a very comprehensive report. So if you want to have access to it, just make sure you click the link below, and also make sure to use the promo code as well for 5% off. And we do those every week with a lot of care, and that's the way we can really bring a lot of value to the table as well. But this here is the most important part to consider. When you replace the off the run with on the run, you're able to provide a volatility suppression into the bond market. So that's mainly the idea, because mostly the Fed is actually the one that everybody expects to create that kind of conditions based on QE, based on monetary policy or interest rates. But the Treasury has really taken over. The Treasury, through Besant and also through Janet Yellen as well, providing a lot of that liquidity through the short-term issuance of debt due to T-bills. This has been some sort of yield curve control that the market is not really seeing with some positive side, but stability for the bond market is essential, not only for the United States, but for the whole world, because the dollars outside of the United States, basically the euro-dollar system, is what makes everything work. This provides a way, like a passport for every single country on earth to have access to dollars, because there are more dollars outside the United States than inside the United States. But especially those have been generated through debt, and debt in all countries owing to each other. So that means that they need to keep their ability to serve their existing debt. So basically, every time the U.S. through Treasury or through the Fed, they do something in regards to domestic policy, this affects the whole world. That's why the U.S. is going through such a heat right now. But of course, we're not going through some kind of specific crisis right now, because the bond market, the bond markets, not only the U.S. but also all over the world, are experiencing higher yields. So that it basically means that the whole world, in a synchronized effect, is feeling the expectations for inflation, not even growth, because growth is very in the moment is very suppressed in a lot of places like Europe or China, in a deflationary spiral. So nowhere is the real economy really responding to that. But the financial markets, they really need that liquidity going, and the term premium for higher yields, especially on the long end of the curve, they are really the focus right now. So we have to take a look at that. So let's see if buybacks are going to grow over time. But especially, I would look for it after the debt ceiling to be raised or even eliminated, as we discussed in the last chapter, via Trump and the whole pressure that is going to be made towards more spending. So all of that are ways to fix liquidity and make sure that everything goes as smooth as possible with the limitations that we currently have. So it's a very sensitive systemic balance that Scott Bessent is doing right now. So yeah, just so you understand exactly how the monetary mechanics work, and hope to see you on our next video.